All right, let's dive into the amazing, super aromatic world of the Indian spice market. You know, it's an industry that's been around forever, steeped in tradition. But here's the thing. Right now, it's facing this really strange paradox, a puzzle that can honestly shake its very foundations.
Okay, so check this out. On one hand, India is, without a doubt, the king of spices. I mean, they're the world's largest producer, the biggest consumer, and the top exporter. They're number one across the board. But then you look at the companies actually in this business, and they're getting squeezed big time. Their profit margins have just fallen off a cliff. So the big question is, how can the world's leader be losing money? That's the paradox we're digging into.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the paradox itself. Then we'll dive into the numbers to see what's really going on. After that, we'll hear straight from the boardrooms, check out some possible solutions, and then, of course, we'll wrap it all up with the big takeaway.
All right, so we've set the stage. A massive, world-leading industry is somehow in deep financial trouble. To really get to the bottom of why this is happening, we've got to look past all the amazing smells and colors and just follow the money. Let's look at the numbers.
Okay, let's get into the financials. We're going to look at the data from 2023 to 2025, and believe me, this is where the real story starts to unfold.
So first things first, let's look at revenue. And wow, between 2023 and 2025, it's basically flatlined. Operating revenue just stopped growing. Now, in an economy that's supposed to be expanding, standing still is a huge red flag. But honestly, that's not even the craziest part of this story.
Yeah, the real shocker is when you look at the bottom line, the profit. In just 2 years, the profit margin for this entire category has nosedived. It went from a pretty decent plus 12% all the way down to negative 5%. Just think about that for a second. These companies went from making a profit to literally losing money on everything they sell. That's a massive, massive swing.
So you gotta ask, where is all the cash going? Well, here it is. This is the big one. An absolutely staggering 92% of every single dollar they make is being completely eaten up by one thing: the cost of the raw materials, the spices themselves.
I mean, just look at this chart to see how insane this problem is. Just a couple of years ago, in 2023, the cost of materials was, a manageable 55% of their revenue. But now, that number has just exploded to 92%. That leaves practically nothing left over for anything else. Not for salaries, not for marketing, not for shipping, and certainly not for profit.
And of course, you can see exactly how companies are trying to deal with this. It's pretty desperate stuff. To handle those crazy high material costs, they've had to just gut their other budgets. Take a look at sales expenses, which is mostly commissions for the sales teams. That has been slashed from almost 21% of revenue down to, well, less than 1%. It's basically vanished. That is a textbook sign of an industry that's just trying to survive day to day. Okay, so the numbers are painting a pretty grim picture, right? But what are the folks in the boardrooms actually saying about all this? Let's connect the dots and hear directly from the leaders who are trying to navigate this storm. And here you have it, straight from the source. This quote from Chathani Foods just lays it all out there. They say that these wild swings in raw material costs are the absolute core of the problem. So this confirms it, right? This isn't just some number on a spreadsheet. It's the day-to-day reality they are fighting. So if you can't control the price of your raw ingredients, what can you control? Well, your brand. And this quote from Spectrum Foods really gets to the heart of their strategy. They're saying, look, we need to build our own brand image. In a market where you're getting crushed on commodity prices, building a strong, trusted brand is really the only way out of that trap.
And these aren't just one-off problems. When you look across all the company reports, you see the exact same headwinds popping up over and over again. You've got the volatile prices we talked about. You've got intense competition from tons of smaller, unorganized sellers. There's the constant struggle to maintain quality and avoid, well, fake stuff. And on top of all that, you've got pressure on your margins from the big established brands. It really is a perfect storm.
Okay, so we've laid out all the challenges and it sounds tough, but what's the way forward? Let's talk about the opportunities and what the recipe for future growth might look like.
It looks like a pretty clear 3-step plan is taking shape for the future. Step 1 is all about product innovation. Creating things like ready-to-cook mixes and special masala blends, not just plain old spices. Step 2 is something we've already touched on, building a strong brand. Really shifting away from just selling a commodity to selling a trusted, packaged product. And finally, step 3, get online. Use e-commerce to build a direct relationship with your customers.
All right, so let's bring this all together. What is the one big takeaway from all of this? Let's boil it down to the key idea that's really going to shape the future of Indian spices.
When you get right down to it, the Indian spice industry is truly at a crossroads. On one path, they can keep being a low-margin commodity business, always subject to those wild price swings. And frankly, that path looks like a dead end. The other path? It's about evolving. It's about moving from just selling a product to actually building a trusted brand. And that's where the future lies. The companies that can make that leap are the ones that are going to thrive. And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. In a market that is so rich with history and tradition, is the future going to belong to the companies that master branding and technology, or the ones who just trade in traditional spices? It's a fascinating question, and I guess the next few years will give us the answer. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.